everyone, and welcome to the SoCal Summer Swing Out podcast. The music you are currently listening to is called Dances in the Night by Papa D, a fellow swing dancer, musician, artist, and friend. You can find all links for streaming, socials, and videos down below. Make sure to go and support him. Now let's get into the episode. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the SoCal Summer Swing Out podcast. My name is Andre, your host, and today we have a very special guest. We have Kenny Nelson, all the way from Denver. What's up, Kenny?
Hey, Andre, thanks for having me.
Of course, man. Now, I really appreciate your flexibility. So we had scheduled to do a recording, and then Kenny was really kind and I said, "Hey, can we reschedule?" So again, super appreciate you taking the time to do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, that being said, some of people here, some of the newer listeners, I'm talking about you, Emily, and them, may not know who Kenny is. Now, I know who you are, and some of the other of my friends know who you are. But for those who don't know Kenny, why don't you give us a brief intro on who you are and a bit of your dance history?
Yeah. Again, yeah, Kenny from Denver, now living out in the suburbs of Aurora with a family of two.
Mm,
But I started dancing in the late 90s, right around 1997. It was
mm,
just the thing to do. Gap commercial. I'm sure some people might know that reference.
mm.
Just got way sucked into it and eventually moved out to Denver because I wanted to improve my dancing. And I was just floored by watching a group called 23 Skidoo perform at the Denver Lindy Exchange in 2003, 2004. I had to
Mm.
visit Denver like four, five more times, mainly for Lindy Hop stuff, and then
Mm.
moved, moved and improved and just started training. And here I am now, like running a swing dance company, teaching, performing, training others to teach, and doing a ton of collaborations out here.
That you are, and you're being incredibly modest. So allow me, sir, because Kenny was the person. You were everywhere on all the videos, and you had traveled all over
Yes.
the world, right?
I have four continents, don't know how many countries. It's been a fair bit. It's been interspersed with like long-term teaching arrangements centered in Porto, Portugal, Madrid, Spain, and Melbourne, Australia. And then that's been punctuated and dotted with different weekend workshops or hanging out at Festival, dancing to electro swing. So living in tents. Good times.
Well, I think that you have such like a rich history of dance, and so I know that we have a couple of topics centered around dance that I want to talk to you about. One of the first
Yeah.
things being you teach at a lot of places, you perform at a lot of places, but one of the things that you had mentioned was there's a reason why you choose to teach Lindy Hop and not East Coast or Jitterbug. So I'm curious if you
Yeah.
could talk to me more about that.
Yeah, I mean that's been a bit of a path, sometimes an uncomfortable path. So yeah, growing up in Kansas City, I mean I forget how they built it. It may have been Jitterbug, it may have been East Coast Swing, because the main
Mm,
hub for dancers of all ages to dance was a ballroom studio. Like all ages Saturday night, I was under 21, couldn't get
mm,
into the clubs, and and being at a ballroom studio, they may have very well said like, this triple step rhythm, that's going to be East Coast swing because that's part of like the ballroom smooth, or actually the rhythm syllabus there, and maybe they were
mm,
calling the other thing jitterbug. And I had my we'll say like my first encounter with shame and guilt, will say, when the studio was bringing out Frankie Manning.
mm,
And I forget how many years prior, but I was specifically instructed to teach the shim sham on the one, because it was easier to learn
mm,
and yeah, the owners in the owner's mind. And so that was just like another, like a way that I, as a representative of the studio teaching hundreds of people, was appropriating Black vernacular dance. In this case,
mm,
the shim sham. In previous cases, like, we'll say the Lindy Hop, because by calling it Jitterbug or East Coast Swing, we're masking the roots. And a term that keeps popping up, I recently started picking up Brenda Dixon Gottschalk books, such as Waltzing in the Dark. And like a term that she coined was, and it's referred to as, but like people were like the dance was invisibilized. Um, it is a clunky word to say.
Yeah.
It reads much easier in my head, like
Yeah.
pages to my mind sort of thing.
Uh-huh.
But basically, yeah, I mean, that's what I was doing. And so like my first encounter, like my most definite, clearest reminder of it is when Frankie Manning came into town,
Mm.
because we all know Frankie Manning and how the Shim Sham is supposed to be done, right? Like that is his thing. That's part of his legacy and how he brings community is dancing the Shim Sham. So there is video on YouTube where you can watch all the people in my studio taught, including myself, on the one. And Frankie and like the Lindy Hoppers that, respected the culture a bit better and were better tradition bearers, you could say. Like they're on the eight, they're doing it properly, but there's just this disconnect. It's just so
Mm,
telling.
mm,
And that was just like, part of my process, part of my like understanding is like, oh, I wanted to investigate what Lindy Hop was.
yes.
Um, because like I could see it on VHS tapes that were brought to me from an event in Ventura, California called Monsters of Swing. Um, but then also like, that's what people, and they still teach it, but that was like the Sunday night class at the Mercury Cafe is you always taught Jitterbug. And again, just never questioned it. It was just something accepted. Same thing when I started like swinging Denver in 2014. Uh, we taught Jitterbug, and we single time rhythm, step, a rock step. We called it
Mm,
Jitterbug. And I wasn't thinking or questioning at the time, even with my, international travels, like nobody teaches that.
mm, mm, mm.
Nobody calls it that. And, I don't know the legacy, but I also figure like with the influence of harangue, it's a better influence because they're bringing out many different Black elders to teach Lindy Hop and vernacular dance,
Mm,
whereas here in America, we're dealing with a lot of systemic racism.
mm,
And that I think that definitely like plays into decision making or and acceptance and lack of questioning. Uh, just a lack of like, really hearing in and like questioning like, why do I do this? And I think I started questioning it maybe with my wife, Jessica or Jess. And I think because like she came from Groove Juice Swing in Rochester, New York, and I mean, they have some like really solid, rich traditions there and like greater influences at play. And I think maybe she was the one that just started asking, like, maybe like, why are you calling it this? And
mm, mm,
eventually, just discarded it. But I was still teaching that and calling it Jitterbug when I was doing like my little man pop-up lessons, 30-minute quick and dirty, because in my mind, oh hey, that's what people call this thing,
mm.
Jitterbug. And I know I'm just like talking a long time about this, but I think it was like in 2019 is really when I started analyzing it and actually started picking up um, more literature. And I think that could be like due to exposure with teaching swing dance or Sylvia Bielik at Cat's Corner, and then also Sam Carroll. Like I greatly admire Sam Carroll, dogpossum.org. Just just read Sam's blog. I
Mm,
cannot
mm,
emphasize her enough. And like she was like somebody that really taught me my worth as a DJ too.
mm.
She Sam is amazing. And then also one reason I wanted to be over here is I wanted to see if I could find this book. Like another great book is Steppin' on the Blues. I'm only showing this for the people on YouTube. The
Uh-huh.
Visible Rhythms of African American Dance by Jacqui Malone. And in here, Jacqui had written like one of the most powerful statements that I include in my classes at all levels, more so in beginner, but it's just that, vernacular means making African American rhythms visible on the dance floor. And then this is the book that set me on the path of like, okay, six definitive characteristics of African American vernacular dances are rhythm, improvisation, control, angularity, asymmetry, and dynamism. And there's a lot of different books that talk about like vernacular characteristics, not only in dance, but also in community. And that's when I started to realize that what I was teaching, how I was teaching, regardless of the rhythm, was still vernacular dance because I was
Mm,
highlighting all the hallmarks, cared about it, and I'm still making and we're still emphasizing like improvisation, creativity, spontaneity, two partners independent of each other yet still connected. Uh, and that's when I suddenly, started getting more comfortable in my mind. I'm like, we're doing Lindy Hop, and Lindy Hop can
mm,
be expressed in a variety of different rhythm patterns too.
mm,
And like, they may not be Lindy Hoppers yet, but we're setting them on the path, and like we're honoring the dance, and it is Lindy Hop. Especially the way we were teaching it, and we're dancing to like good swing music. It's not like the 90s, but also like what they were doing to Lindy Hop back in the 1930s and 40s to simplify it, for white audiences, to remove blackness from it. And so that's just been like my journey. And it's also just been a lot of reading. It's been not only books, but also, participating in the Teaching Swing Dance Facebook group and reading and listening and questioning and really evaluating, why do I do what I do? Like, what is the root of it all? Like, what is my
mm,
pathway? Can I change? Oh, yes, I can change. Change is actually easy at times.
mm,
Um, no matter how people like, because I swear people think it's so difficult sometimes because they want to please this audience.
mm, mm,
Yeah, but you can determine who your audience is. Ooh,
mm,
you gotta market, and then part of that sometimes is also acknowledging what you have done in the past and also explain why you are making this decision that you are. Because I also think transparency is good because that can also influence other people to change for the better because they see the
mm,
path, they see the change, they understand, or they can at least like read why, and think that can help people. Is to just be open to your like past failings too. Um, it's like, yeah, whew, pathway, Kansas City to Denver to now.
I mean, I have to say that it's so admirable to see someone with such rich experience be able to recognize that because there's been this beautiful transition in the Lindy Hop scene where I feel like a
Yeah,
lot of instructors are really wanting to bring it back to the roots of the dance. That quote that he talks about, vernacular dance, vernacular means making African American rhythms visible on the dance floor. That's visceral. And for those listening, I'll put the book that
yes.
Kenny brought up in the description so that you can also check it out. I know I'm going to add it to my reading list. Now,
Oh,
you said a lot of great things there, but one of the things that really stuck out to me and a core part of this podcast is talking about community. And when we're talking about African American rhythms, we're also talking about the music because we can't have the dance without the music. I know that you had brought up the importance of partnering with bands outside of just swing dance and music community, correct?
yes. It's just been part of our ethos here with Swing in Denver as we work with the greater, broader Metro Denver and beyond community. Live music is super important.
Mm,
It's it's amazing how stark the difference is between the Lindy Hop community that predominantly listens to DJ music and the rest of the Denver community. And like we want to sell them on live music because not all DJs get how to create a party vibe for the general public. And
mm,
we do a lot of work in the general public, and we put a lot of effort, especially on social, like on special events, to get the public out. And the
mm,
public wants party music. And that's just another thing that we've been working on emphasizing with like live bands too, is like we want party music. We want the good times to roll. basically, because like, I mean, for like you have such a rich live music scene out in Southern California, just with like Josh Colazzo,
Mm,
Jonathan Stout, and others, but also like I was out there some years back, and like Steve Sayers taking us out to different places and like exposing us to just like some like Motown, again, live bands. Um, it's so great because like I'm reminded of that one saying is like you can't step in the same river twice because like the current's always flowing. It's never the same. And I feel like it's that way with live bands. I mean, they're living. Whereas like, I mean, DJ music, unless you're playing multiple like versions of rockin' and rhythm or something.
mm,
I mean, granted, like dancing with different people and depending on like, your mood, it's still like you're never stepping into the same river twice, still with like
right.
DJ music, but working with live bands is just, something special. And that's like people love seeing that and bands love being in front of people, just jamming and playing and ah, it's so awesome. And I just love being in public spaces.
Yeah.
I mean, granted, yes, like having a nice hardwood floor is nice, but heck, if I can be at a place listening to amusing music, drinking great cocktails, a beer, eating an amazing wood fire pizza, and then I can like stand up and dance whenever I want, like that's great
Mm,
too.
yeah, yeah, yeah. The vibes.
It's the vibes. I mean, we've been creating something magical with Little Man Ice Cream out here. I mean, yeah, we missed a couple years with COVID, but basically this is our 10th year working with them. So like 13 to 15 dates, Saturdays, outdoors in the summer, ice cream, live music, beginner Lindy Hop lessons in front of hundreds of people. Like that's life. And you should see like the smiles it puts on people's faces because like they were just coming out to get ice cream, but now suddenly like they're a part of this bigger thing and they might be taking a swing like Lindy Hop lesson for the first time just because they, randomly walked up to have ice cream.
Mm, mm, mm. That's refreshing because I think that the only general populace dancing or like exposure that we do right now is through Atomic when they do like the free workshops or the free dance in a day, I guess you could say. And
Yeah, we do.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, we do ice cream distilleries, breweries, Union Station, artisan vendor markets. Like we're in so many places. I mean, we've created like second lines outdoors in the fall as part of a vendor market.
wow.
Yeah.
Now that's outreach. That's community outreach right there. And like you do that through partnering with different bands and different venues that are not swing dance related, or
Yeah, correct. So one tip I have for everybody, if you're looking
mm,
to, find some different venues. So we also do like learn how to Lindy Hop, learn how to swing dance and day workshops. And that kind of gives us another opportunity. And our thing is like, where can I pop into a cool venue, bring people to it, where there's also nearby food and drink for like either lunch or we end early or something like that. But we're also looking like we have found the greatest success. If they run a yoga class there, you can run a dance class.
okay.
Yeah. Um, like we've even done it like at a roastery and like that was the best smelling class ever.
A roastery. That's ingenious.
Yeah. Percolating rhythm. Credit goes to Kate Hazen for that clever naming right there. But yeah, I mean, we love it because it also like it brings people in to support different businesses. I get to highlight different neighborhoods and venues and stuff, and then gain greater exposure myself because I mean, it's really great to say like, hey, I've taught Lindy Hop at the Source. The Source is a well-known food hall and hotel here in Denver, where after the class, part of the class involved like a complimentary drink, eighth floor, rooftop views, like 360 all around, just seeing like the beautiful Denver skyline plus the mountains.
Hmm.
Um, it's just so much fun, like creating things like that. And then and people see it and then they want swing dancing at their venue. Like that's why we do things at an outdoor mall at like Aspen Grove. It's why we've worked with Park Meadows. Part of the reason that, we've done, regular gigs at Beaver Creek, where and all these places have all their different budgets. And so it's a really great way to you know, you can start here as a band, but then like we can get them like more moneyed gigs. Because I'm
Mm,
also like reminded of like the Duke Ellington quote is like, my gimmick is I pay my people. Yeah. And
mm,
like if you want the bands to get better, it helps to get them gigs. And so I was able to book 50 swing band dates through Little Man Ice Cream, because I'm now the
mm.
talent booker for all 7 other venues covering 140 plus dates.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's like relations, relationships. And so yeah, like swing bands aren't just playing for swing dancers, they're out. I mean, we have a lot of like bands that just hustle and like play at so many cool
Hmm.
venues, small to big. And so like, one of my goals would be to like get more of the local swing organizations here to book more live music. I mean, that would be phenomenal to see.
Yeah, yeah. Now, I have to confess, I'm not very familiar with Denver's jazz and swing band scene, but is there a pretty thriving like jazz scene in Denver, would you say?
It seems to be pretty thriving. So, like the main station is Kuvo, KUVO. Main place, couple main places are like Dazzle. Denver is really well known. Nocturne is new. Spangalang Brewery. I mean, there's a lot of places that hire jazz bands, and then we have um, like the Five Points Jazz Festival. Five Points was the basically regarded as the Harlem of the West back in the
Mm-hmm.
day. It has suffered through some gentrification recently, but there's also some really nice investments taking place from Black ownership, revitalizing places like the Rossonian, getting
Mm-hmm.
the famous Walton Street Cafe relocated like a few blocks north of its current location. They haven't opened recently. They should be opening soon. Don't remember, but yeah, solid jazz scene. But there's still a solid split, it feels like, between the jazz, we'll say 50s and later, modern,
Mm-hmm.
postmodern, versus like the swing era stuff.
Mm.
But overall, we have about 40 different swing bands across the Front Range.
Oh.
And that's basically like east of the mountains that border Boulder and Golden and Colorado Springs, to kind of give any
Mm-hmm.
listeners a mental image right there. So there's a lot of like wide range of talent from, anywhere between trios to 18 pieces.
Okay.
Yeah,
Gotcha, gotcha.
different
So
things.
it's yeah, yeah, yeah. So it's a pretty rich. It sounds like there's like a lot of opportunity for a lot of the general populace as well as swing dancers to experience live bands there, which I'm all for
Yeah,
having more bands in Denver.
yeah. And there's been some like cool recent collaborations too between cabaret burlesque and swing bands. I have
Uh,
a collaboration coming up called Les Cirque Risqué with aerial circus acts followed by a swing dance party where we will somehow host a spontaneous competition. Good luck. I'm crossing my fingers right now.
mm.
Good luck to us. And then another band recently did a nice little burlesque collaboration with Misfits Entertainment at a new venue that opened up downtown called Orchid Denver. And so I'm hoping that like these developments, turn into like more like regular permanent gigs. I'm hoping like it's paying off, like, the venue, the entertainment booker, and the bands are all like finding success.
Hmm.
Because that's the other thing is just like I was talking to David Lawrence, band leader of La Pompe and Royal Street Ramblers, some months back when we were talking about the idea of sustainability around
Mm.
ticket prices. Yeah.
Mm,
And, one thing that stood out for me is he was just saying that sustainability means being able to do it over again. Um, and that's something that organizers have to be mindful of is like pricing things right, threading the needle between what the audience is willing to pay for, marketing it right, because I also think that people that are just trying to sell to the swing dance audience is missing a good opportunity to bring the general public out, because sometimes
mhm,
things can get finicky here with
mhm,
with how we treat live music within like the Lindy Hop community.
mhm.
And then, making sure like you're covering all your financial elements, but hopefully do it again.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That actually is a perfect segue into the other topic that I was curious to chat with you about, because I think there are several people who listen to this podcast who want to reach the general public, who want to like
Yes.
make their events known. And I know that you have some really good thoughts on marketing as a means to increase accessibility. So I was curious, like, where, if you could tell us more about that.
Yeah. And well, there's a few reasons why, but like one memory that stands out to me is so Brie Mason Campbell, affiliated with the Guardian Baltimore. And I think I was looking Brie up recently, and I think either her role switched or maybe the Guardian rebranded. So if
Mm-hmm.
you're putting any links in, like you can feel free to like do name check me as far
Uh-huh.
as the organization affiliation. But she was giving a talk at Lindy Focus in 2017, and it was just on the subject of like, are you marketing to different neighborhoods, or are you just marketing to the neighborhood that you currently occupy with your swing dance class? Are you doing physical? And like so few people were raising their hand, which was astounding to me because at least here
Mm-hmm.
in Denver, through the work of Dan Newsom and Tiffany Wine, who used to like manage the swing nights at the Mercury Cafe.
Mm-hmm.
I just remember like they always had marketing materials. They had two college students, a brother and sister that would just drive around town dropping off flyers. Like, and then you can also read Dan's blog, The Home of Happy Feet, really great resource for marketing. But like at their home, they also had stickers and magnets because you slap the sticker on your water bottle or you slap the magnet on the fridge, and even if you don't attend immediately, you're going to have a constant reminder
Mm-hmm.
because they had all these different assets. You could fold the piece of paper, stick it in your wallet, stick it in your pants, and maybe it like gets penned somewhere. But they had all these ways in which people could take marketing materials from them and be reminded later about you could learn how to Lindy Hop at the Mercury Cafe.
Mm-hmm.
And like all that advice, like Dan is like one of the great resources available to the swing dance community, not only about marketing but also running teams, how to appreciate swing music, how to DJ. Again, like really great stuff. The home of happyfeet.com. um and but like I'm hoping that all these people left Brie's talk going, okay, how can I increase my marketing? Because like you gotta like print marketing is so important, and you got to make sure like you're flyering different neighborhoods, not just the one you're occupying in, because like people drive in. I mean, they could be, they might live in the Baker neighborhood, but they happen to be on Tennyson at Hops and Pie getting a pizza and a beer, and they see a swing in Denver flyer, and then they can come back to to the Baker neighborhood where they live. So there's like all these ways to reach people, and she was also pointing out just like, I mean, are you only teaching in neighborhoods that you're comfortable in? And are you only doing outreach in neighborhoods you're comfortable in? And so like, just really asking people like, why do you do what you do? What do you do? Could you do more? But like the other element of that is too, is just like have a robust online calendar,
Mm-hmm.
make it easier for people to access and pay for a class.
Mm-hmm.
Um, be active on Facebook, be active on Instagram, which people treat as the new Google to find
Mm-hmm.
things. Have your links, see what Instagram is doing that is new. Like, I love the fact that you can now add more than one other collaborator. That is great because it gets you into new audiences. The other thing is having a robust Google My Business profile. Like, I think that's one of the reasons why Swing in Denver, as inactive as we are, we're still like a top 3 result, strangely enough. And of all the organizations here in Denver, we might actually be one of 2, possibly the only, no, maybe one of 2 that actually have active quality Google My Profile listings in which we are the clear owner on it. Like, we have claimed it because you can post events on through Google, you can make posts, like you can do so much. And the thing is like Google likes good content also. And I think, you know, you need to be active everywhere. It's like my friend Kyle Smith, amazing DJ, since retired, also a webmaster and marketer. So one of the things, so I attended like one of our class on, I think it may have been just called marketing at the Balboa experiment, and he was talking about like y'all on social media should be like selling 10% of the time, and I forget how he called it, but like, you know, basically being a community spot for people to come like 90% of the time. And that's where, you know, it's just interesting to see how much like people are just like all their content, it's only their events. But there's other places, and Swing in Denver does this, is just like we're posting content from all around the world. You know, just people dancing from different events, celebrating others, or here's some amazing, you know, information about this artist like Ella Fitzgerald or something, and just being a community resource rather than an advertising hub for people to just know what event you do. And I found that a really good advice. And then the other piece of advice that resides in my brain is that when I was like starting the process to get the Swing in Denver website created, he was like, you need to sit down one evening, pour yourself a bottle of wine, and start signing up for all the social media channels. I did that without the wine, but it's like the same thing when like more and more people were getting on TikTok. I mean, I low effort our TikTok presence, I high effort Instagram, and then, you know, Facebook's in there. But like it was good advice because I do think it's important to be everywhere. And I know that can be daunting for some, but you want people to find you. You like the only way you're going to have like a burgeoning scene is if you're bringing new people in. And that also includes like digital advertising on social media and then also Google. And then I was talking to Nick over at Tracktown Swing about that because he was curious about how much money, you know, we were spending. I was like, well, I only got data for like, you know, these sessions from like 2022, but like, you know, here's my data. Here's what we do. And you know, I want to cover as much as possible. So it's a good mix between, you know, social media, digital advertising, physical assets, and the collaborations help. And also at the collaborations that we're doing, we're often pulling up with a 6-foot vertical roll-up banner too, so that people can see Swing in Denver. The 2 new banners we added have QR codes too, because I just want to make everything accessible. It's also like, you know, somebody was like, you know, your website is not optimized for older people. You need to have links to your calendar, to your classes. And I think they may have said even like one other thing, like the first thing that people see, like older people don't want to do it. And you need to get better at maintaining your website calendar too. And like also like email newsletter, get the email addresses, reach people, because more and more people are also leaving social media. You mentioned Discord, you know, before our call. I'm curious about that because it's like, you know, where are people? How can I find them? You know, who are my target demographic? But you want the word to get out any old way you can. So that's why we do so much. And it's also why I feel like I can't restart regular classes right now because I don't have the time or energy to market how I want to.
Mm-hmm.
I I I don't necessarily I don't want to half-ass things,
Right.
essentially.
Yeah. Yeah. Not to mention, like, with as a swing dance company owner and as like a professional swing dancer, I feel like it resonates with a lot of people when you say, yeah, a lot of it is advertising. Like you have to advertise and sell in order to get people into the door to then create that community atmosphere, right?
Yeah. Because also like I mean, low attended dances can be sad dances
Yeah,
unless
yeah.
unless you also just have people that have the time and energy to give their energy to people to make them feel welcome and part of a community, no matter how small it is. But I also have to recognize that can be exhausting
Mm, mm,
for folks to just pour your energy into something that doesn't feel like it's giving you energy back.
right. Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. I asked this because I know several people listening to this podcast. So there's this fellow named Nick. He's out in Philly, and he definitely has the energy and heart for community. There are several people here, so in California, who have that. And I was curious, what kind of advice would you give to people who have the time and the energy to get more people into the door or to market to more people, to get more people interested in Lindy Hop as a whole?
I mean, I'm all about collaborations and getting into the public.
Mm,
And
mm,
that's been like one of the one of the things I've talked about. I've done some, I don't know, call them consultations with some just organizations as far as like, all right, Kenny, we notice you do this. Like, what's the payoff? Does it work? What can we do too? But like, I think collaborations are important because not only is it getting you in front of people, but also, it can also help you grow your social media following, which in turn hopefully will help you, build up in other areas. I mean, one of the things that I have lacked in is like if anybody has ever seen like a street performer, like they're really good at working the audience. And sometimes they
mm,
have like a secondary person that's like, they got the tip hat, they got the tip jar, like, and they're working it. And like in my ideal worlds, along with these collaborations, I would
mm,
have this tertiary person that's like a non-instructor, non-GJ, working the back end, but like handing out cards, handing out assets because in the back of my mind, I don't think I've gotten enough um uh of an acquisition rate out of
mm-hmm,
these. But I think
mm-hmm,
it's also just part of my own failing of not taking additional steps of like, you know, getting things into people's hands and like having a harder sell because there are people that can just and work it and just do it marvelous ways.
mm-hmm,
Um, I also think like especially for like live musical nights too. I just think it's like it can be exhausting, but like posters and playbills, like mixing up the different sizes because like you see how concerts are promoted. Like
mm,
we should be promoting our stuff like concerts, like parties, instead of, oh, let's go to a dance. And that was like an ethos I picked up from Europe.
mm.
It was at first confusing because I'd be like, oh, when's the next dance? And I'm like, dance? Oh, you mean party?
Party, uh-huh.
Oh, yeah. And like, took me a little bit to get out of that mentality, but they just kept doing the same thing. Oh, you mean party? And
Mm-hmm,
like, I mean, we need to have parties. We need to have proper advertising for the parties
mm-hmm.
too, and make it seem like a party. Heck, I love the poster designs that keep coming out of Atomic.
Yeah.
I mean, I love the like poster design work that Steve Sayer has done. He might even have like the same graphic designer that I met some years ago, but like I love seeing people that put like some really nice effort into their like design their
Mm-hmm.
artwork because it makes me want to go.
Yeah.
Um, and making some of those investments. And I mean, yeah, I know I just kind of like repeated like all of the same things I said, but like, I mean, these are kind of like the reasons, and I've seen the payoffs, especially
Yeah.
for like larger special events. We used to host an event called the Speakeasy Soiree, and we get like 400 plus people. and 75% of those were the general public. Like
Nice.
they've never gone. I like these are people I've never seen before, but they're showing up to this because it's an event. They can dress up, they can have food, drink, shop vendors. Like it's this whole thing, and I love that. I love it when people are also posting in Facebook groups, not just called Boston Lindy Hop Facebook group or something, but like you're posting in social dancing Boston and you're trying to reach
Mm,
people. Like I love seeing that effort too, of people being willing to share their events outside of their own immediate community.
yeah, yeah. I feel like it really changes the atmosphere and like the perspective of what the event's going to be like when someone posts about it. When someone posts on a group that says, "Hey, this looks like fun. I'm going. You should come with me." Right?
Yeah. And also like that's how people find out about you. I mean, that's just another way of saying like your marketing makes the event more accessible.
Mm,
And like and it's amazing how many people just promote their event to the swing dance community. Like
mm,
these events should be for everybody. Like, why is it just for swing dancers? Why are you limiting it? Why are you making it exclusive? Not
mm,
that they are, but it's one way to look at it because you're only promoting it to one certain audience and you're kind of making it an exclusive event. Whereas, like, swing dance is for everybody.
hmm. This was so this is so insightful for me because as I'm listening to you, I'm thinking about things that I'm going to do differently from my event. One of the first things I'm going to do is
Wait.
call the dances a party. Going to call it a Saturday
Yeah.
night party, Friday night party. That's
Hell
definitely one
yeah.
of the things. Uh, one of the other things that I was also thinking about is as we're talking about bringing in more people and being more community conscious and reaching out to other neighborhoods. I was curious if you could. I know this is like a tough question, but if you could name just one thing that a scene could focus on to do to in order to reach more people, what's the one thing that you would do out of everything that you had mentioned? I know I giving you a tough one.
I mean, heck, like, I've thought about this before, but like, one thing in my dreamy dreams, like, y'all should get some funding, shut down a street, and host a massive block party.
Whoa, ho, ho, ho. All right.
And line up your PR, line up your marketing, line up everything, and make it a blowout.
Dang, that's an incredible
Food,
idea.
food, drink, couple stages, multiple bands.
Oh man, you know what? I remember there was a place in Champaign-Urbana, Illinois, that had something like this, but it was for a
Nice.
blues festival. And that was super successful. A lot of people showed up. Yeah, oh man, now you got my brain going, Kenny.
Yeah, because like it's fascinating. So we have Five Points Jazz Festival. They closed down like two or three blocks off Welton and historic Five Points district, but like, they don't hire like too many swing bands, or sometimes they might be in like one of the smaller venues. And sometimes there've been some like maybe one or two on like the main stage, but like
Mm,
you don't get the dance party vibe. Like
mm.
it's just like it's a little too straight, you know.
Yeah.
Um, some people some people can just tear it up. And again, like I'm thinking back to I was at a brewery having a meeting with David Lawrence, again, band leader he has like 4 or 5 different projects, including the Blind Pigs. And he's just like, just look at this. And it was a bluegrass trio. And he's like, people are just getting up and dancing and they're just bobbing their head. He's like, this is what I want. And he
Mm,
gets that. Like he's one of the hardest working band leaders out there. And he covers like a wide swath of genres with all his projects. But
mm,
like that's another thing. It's just like that's what I want too.
mm,
There's no reason that swing bands and swing music have to be in dance halls.
mm,
Like people should just be able to like get up and freely move without a partner and just jam, you know? And I think like food and beverage have a good deal to do with like community
yeah.
too. Because I think something else that gets lost is the social aspect
Mm,
because I don't know, I still have like just memories of people nagging on me for socializing because they
mm,
see my
mm,
value as a dancer. If
mm,
I'm not dancing, it feels like I have less value.
mm,
But like I also love socializing, hanging
mm,
out with
mm,
people, and swing dances are a great place to like see people because it's a hub, it's a community gathering space. It's where you can talk to people and not just dance. And certainly people are welcome to like dance because I get it. Like some folks are hungry for that. But I
mm,
think,
mm,
all these spaces should, allow people to enjoy how they want to enjoy. And I always appreciate venues with like different kinds of like rooms and spaces because it just
mm,
creates like nooks and crannies for people to hang out and mingle in different ways.
mm, mm, mm. Yeah, I always appreciated the events where there was a space where people could like it's very obvious that people are just hanging out and people are just like talking and catching up with their friends because that's the one chance they get to see
Yeah.
each other each week. And then there's
Yeah.
obviously like the dance floor, you know?
Yeah. I mean, it's one of the reasons that Inspiration Week in 2020 was so rewarding to
Mm,
me because I was coming off of a rough patch in 2019. I don't know, depressed. I felt the opposite of being ready to inspire people,
mm,
sort of thing. But it was really rewarding, and part of that also is like they gave us instructors plenty of time, plenty of downtime to also hang out with each other, and that's how like I gotta hang out with like Felix Bergall for a good amount of time, Bobby a
mm,
bit, and like I've never had like the time or luxury to like hang out or talk to other instructors because if I'm ever at an event, we're all doing our thing, and then we're all
mm,
at like in our hotel room. Like we've it helped that they housed us at like a single dance, single house, and
mm.
we're like just hanging out after tacos with Mala, just talking about gun violence in America. Um, uh, but yeah, it's rewarding just to be able to hang out with people and people just being willing to hang out with you.
I think that there is I think Lindy Groove does a great job about this, like making it very community oriented. There's this new group of dancers at Lindy Groove. They have this little corner and they're all really good friends. All of them come to Lindy Groove and yes, they dance, but they're primarily there to just hang out and be friends. And I love that
Cool.
group because swing dancing is what brought them together. And now that group is really tight knit and they're very close and they hang out
Yeah,
outside of dancing. But that was because of dance that they were able to make that connection. So I very much appreciate
nice.
that you appreciate the value of socializing at a dance. And that's not, yes, the dance is beautiful, but it creates a community where we actually get to like be humans with each other, right?
Right. And yeah, so I'm bringing out Felix Bergall and Marine Die out later this
Mm-hmm.
year. And so one of the things that was coming up in a Zoom call we had is just like, I'm gonna just misquote, but like Marie was referencing just people's humanity. And I think that's also something important is like it took me a long time to realize this, but like like y you bring yourself to the dance
Mm-hmm.
and it's welcome
Mm-hmm.
because I mean, even I did this for a while. It's just like because of how white culture is like you're creating like little cookie cutters of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You're trying to like output the same thing all the time. Or like, people are like, oh, I want your sugar push to look like this. It ought to be like this. And I'm just like, I came from a West Coast swing background. And it took me like only until maybe like 2020, I was like realizing things. I was like, yeah, well, and I'd probably just go through like ebbs and flow of this, but I was just like, okay, all right, I'm going to accept my like a myriad of a dance background.
Mm-hmm.
And it just makes the dance more creative and free, but also like this is what vernacular dance is all about. And it gets back
Mm-hmm.
into like I think it was like when Al Menz was interviewed by Swedish television, he's like, and this is something I mentioned to the students because I need them to be welcome in their own bodies. It's just like, I look across the Savoy ballroom floor and I see hundreds of different styles
Mm-hmm.
out there. But I'm also reminded, and who knows about this legend? This was passed on to me via Kevin Saint Laurent. He's like, hey, did you ever hear about that time when they were trying to figure out like Frankie's swing out? Huh?
Mm-hmm.
Tell me. And he was just saying like, they hit play, Frankie does a swing out, they write their notes. I'm like, oh man, cool. Can we see that again? Hit play, Frankie does a swing out. And they're like, oh heck. He was like layering different rhythms and footwork and stuff. And I'm like, let's just check it out again. And then like, okay, they're taking notes. But like, can you imagine what it'd have been like if Frankie could have taught maybe how the way he wanted to teach
Mm-hmm.
rather than landing with step, step, triple step, 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 triple step?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what would have been the path of Lindy Hop if it was you briefly hold your partner, you swing them out, you reconnect versus how we how some people can break down a swing out. But like,
Mm-hmm.
what would it have been like?
Mm.
You know?
Yeah.
Um, I wish I could recall this quote by the historians Terry Monahan and Karen Hubbard. Um, I'd have to find it. It's probably from some excerpt they were writing about the Savoy, but it was just something about the partnerships were mutually assertive.
Mm.
There's another thing is like, what if we had learned and then had taught that Lindy Hop was a partnership that is mutually assertive from the beginning? Like we've gone
Mm.
through a lot of growing pains to get to that point with that. And there's still some holdouts or people that have like you learned a long time ago and just kind of got frozen in time too. But like, what if we were all teaching Lindy Hop like that?
Mm.
And as it should be.
Yeah.
We're getting back to like and really emphasizing and leaning in on the vernacular dance hallmarks.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's I don't know. It's interesting to
It's
think about.
I think that's a really good point for any of the listeners to think through. Is like what would that have looked like for sure? And that's gonna give me some food for thought as well, which is actually like a perfect place to like start segueing because you did mention so Felix talks about this kind of stuff a lot, but you did mention Felix and Marie. So tell us more about that event.
Yeah. So this was all sparked by somebody on my team. Her name is Jamie Burke.
Hmm.
And Jamie is awesome. She discovered us in 2015. And I do not remember how this all like went down, but like pretty soon after that, I gave her the keys to a practice studio we use so that beginner Jamie could host a practica.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, she's amazing. So she took an intermediate class of theirs, like an intermediate part two class of theirs at Camp Hollywood this past
Mm-hmm.
year. And and there's a blog on Swing in Denver right now that Jamie wrote. So it's all in her words, because I was just like, I need you to refresh my mind. We caught because her and I talked about this at a gig, and I was just like, you know what? I'm going to email them. I'm just going to see if they're interested and like want to come out here and are available.
Mm.
But she was kind of nervous. She hadn't been dancing in a while, and she was also like, part two. Yeah, like, do I want to jump in here?
Mm.
But it was an amazing, uplifting experience for her with with Felix and Marie kind of notating like, the differences between like European and American culture, like Europe doing a lot of 8 count focus, America 6, and they were just trying to like get people to explore their musical autonomy
Mm. Mm-hmm.
and their autonomy as dancers too. And again, there's the blog on Swing in Denver. Um,
Mm.
but it was just like this, and it just proved to be so rewarding and uplifting. And she felt validated because what Felix and Marie were teaching is in alignment with what Swing in Denver does.
Mm.
And she doesn't always feel validated because of the values that other swing dance schools or communities instill.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, you're not following this, therefore you're wrong, and that sort of thing. And like, I'm also struck by like what Sylvia Bialik from Cat's Corner in Montreal said in a teacher training is like, there is shame associated with leading and following.
Mm.
We don't talk about leading. We barely talk about leading and following in beginner land. It was like, we just want people to dance. We want people to explore their bodies. And the question that we ask them is like, does it feel good? Did it feel good? What changes could you make? How could we facilitate the conversation between you and your partner so that maybe they could make some changes so that things could feel better? Because we're just
Mm.
trying to like, you know, calibrate them internally. It's like proprioception, for dancers, just having like that, enhancing their self-awareness with
Mm.
like little to no expectations. Like people can choose their path and choose what they want to get out of Lindy Hop. But so that sparked that. They're coming in May 31st through June 2nd, 8-hour intensive workshop, 7 hours dance focus, 1 hour Q&A lecture. Still haven't landed on topics, but I'm really interested in perhaps diving into Marie's work,
Mm-hmm.
like women jazz, and I'm forgetting what else, but I still got time to explore.
Mm-hmm.
Friday night we have a 20-person tour at the Black American West Museum and Cultural Center in Five Points. I think it's very important to check that out. I actually have not been to the museum, but we have partnered with their lead curator in the past, and it was really rewarding to have her bring like pictures of I'm always going to blank out. I'm blanking out on the artist, but like, it's just her, like
Uh-huh.
her as a little kid with these swing era legends, and it was just
Mm.
like the storytelling behind that, which I really value. Partnering with Boulder Swing Dance for a Saturday night event, and then we're working with the Little Man Ice Cream Factory to combine soul line dancing, either live or recorded soul music, with barbecue.
Wow.
Yeah, and ice cream. So, and there's a slide inside.
A
That slide is
slide.
amazing. Oh yeah.
All right. Well, that sounds like
Yeah.
a phenomenal event. For those listening, I'd taken a private with Kenny, and he had already told me about this, and so I am planning to attend. I'll put all of that information. So funny. So I'll put all of that event information uh, down below. Now, before we go into the closing questions, is there anything else you want to expand on that we had talked about recently, or any topics that we haven't touched on so far?
I feel like we touched on a lot, and I know that time is ticking away.
Yeah,
So
I know it's getting a little late for you over there. So we're gonna go into like the last few questions that I ask all of my guests. And the first one is, it's a marketing question, considering how we touched on such good marketing stuff. But where can people find more information about you and Swing in Denver as a whole?
Man, honestly, I'd say just go to swingindenver.com or check us out on Instagram, just to kind of find out like what's up, what are we doing, what are we promoting, that sort of thing. That's kind of the best hub. And then I'm the one answering the emails on the contact us forum. So if you got questions or coming out to Denver, like feel free to reach out.
Boom. There you go. And then
Yeah.
the other question was, apart from the one that you had mentioned, and say that one more time. What are the dates of the one where you're bringing Felix and Marie out?
Yeah, that's going to be May 31st through June 2nd. So it is the weekend after Camp Jitterbug and ILHC.
Gotcha. And then what other events are you going to like in 2024?
Who knows? I'm married with two kids. Woo! But I mean, that being said, like there's a couple of places Delilah and I might pop up. That is still yet to be determined, but
Mhm.
Instagram is a good spot, and I imagine these organizers do their work, and so it'll be on likely Facebook,
Gotcha.
Planet, that sort of thing. If things materialize, my main competition partner, for people that don't know, is Delilah Williams.
Hmm.
She is a proud mama of three kids,
Mm.
and so family life naturally, create some things to work around sometimes and get creative with.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So we'll keep an eye out for that. And the last question that I ask, which is my favorite question, is what is the message you want to leave for any swing dancers or any Lindy hoppers that are currently listening today?
Oh boy. Now, this is why I prepared. So I'm actually scrolling to our previous event that we had scheduled this for, so I could pop open some notes here. Um, so that is such an important question. Let's see if I just block the camera here. Answers for Andre.
I love how
See.
prepared you are, by the way. The fact that you took notes at all is like beautiful.
Yeah. Oh man, I actually kind of answered this on a it was an Instagram question. I think on Joe Hoffberg's account. It's
Mm,
very similar to what what my notes say, but um, I would just greatly encourage people to keep learning and exploring, keep asking questions and figuring out where you can find those answers, and be open to being vulnerable and professing a lack of knowledge in areas so that people can get you answers or resources there too. I would also encourage people to study more deeply what vernacular means. We did touch
mm,
on it a little earlier, but like read Steppin' on the Blues, read. Um, I also find, well, there's Jazz Dance by Marshall Stearns. There's also
mm,
Jazz Dance, A History of the Roots and Branches, edited
mm,
by Lindsay Guarino and Wendy Oliver. And this has a chapter in the book that also deals with vernacular values as it pertains to community. Because I also think that it's super important to know its associated values, such as expressing African American rhythms on the dance floor, call and
mm,
response, improvisation. And then I also encourage people to see, recognize, and lift up other people. I would not be where I am today if people had not recognized whatever latent talent or drive may have been inside me.
mm,
So I'm always grateful to those people, and they've been at all stages of my dance life. And then the final thing is also be willing to have firm boundaries, because your time and energy is important. And then
mm,
especially as like people might start working like their own gigs, it's important to have good contracts in place, and that you are valuing your time and people understand the value of your time. And again, to like reflect back on Sam Carroll, that is one of the things she did for me as a DJ, actually as a DJ working for her. And
mm,
that was truly amazing. And so again, I appreciate people like her and others, or even people that, check in and allow you and open up the possibility of a no, or ask you questions of just like, do you feel like we are valuing your time enough? Because feel like, I appreciate the volunteer labor, but we also have to be cognizant of people's time and valuing their time and not taking advantage of them.
Yeah, 150%. I think that's a really warm reminder for all of us to be doing that. So I super appreciate you bringing those words up, Kenny. Really, I do.
Thank you.
Well, I think that takes us to the end of our podcast. For those of you listening, thank you for making it to the end. Please make sure to follow Kenny on Instagram. Check out all the links down below. Check out Kenny's event as well. That's happening in Denver. Let me know if you're planning to go. Maybe we can carpool or something. And then don't forget to follow SoCal Summer Swing on Instagram, on YouTube. Also, don't forget to hit going on the Facebook event for the SoCal Summer Swing Out Exchange. It'd be amazing to have you all. But that is it. Kenny, don't go anywhere after I stop recording. But thank you so much for doing this podcast with me.
Thank you.
All right, and bye everyone. We'll see you later. Bye. Thank you for listening. The music you are currently hearing is called Dances in the Night by Papa D. You can find all its links down below. Till next time.
Don't lose hope, trying to stand tall, trying to give this dance of yours the best that you got, cause every time that they hear this sound, that music gets their feet above the ground. Time just seemed to stop in every move. Seems all your life what is based on tonight, and all you gotta do is do it right. You gotta move, you gotta move, you gotta move, move, move. Got to be a